welcome Primary 5. With you is Ms. Noura Abdurrahman, and today we are going to start lesson number 4 and 5 on concept number 1 on unit number 2. So are you ready to start? Let's go! We talked about the gravity. The gravity is attraction force happened between two objects have mass, because we said that any object has mass will have a gravity. So it's a force happened between two objects. One object has more mass and the second object has less mass. Okay, let's talk about the sun and the earth. Which one has more mass? Of course, the sun. So the sun has more gravity. That's why the sun is pulling the earth. So all the time, the more mass object is pulling the small mass object, like the sun pulling the earth, like the earth pulling the moon. So again, the gravity is a force happened between two objects, the more mass object pulling the small mass object. Okay, can we see the gravity? No, because the gravity is invisible force, but we can know that there is a gravity because we can see the effects of the gravity. We can see everything around us falling down. When you see the ball falling down, when you see the pencil falling down, so that's because the gravity is pulling everything down to the center of the earth. So we cannot see the gravity because it's invisible force, but we can see the effect of gravity. Okay, we know also that there is an atmosphere around the earth. Do you remember what is the atmosphere? The atmosphere, it's a mixture of gases surrounding the earth. Like what? Like oxygen, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, water vapor. Okay, why these gases are not floating on the space and keeping around the earth? Because also of the gravity. Do the gases on the atmosphere has mass? Of course they have mass and they have gravity, but the gravity of the earth has more mass. So the gravity of the earth can pull the atmosphere and keep it around the earth. Now here we have a give reason why the objects like balls drop into the ground after being thrown up into the air. Of course, because the gravity pulling this ball to the center of the earth. Okay guys, do the gravity affecting only the moving object that threw up or the object that's moving? No. The gravity all the time affecting the object that move and the object also that doesn't move. Like when you are sitting on the chair, the gravity attracting you down and keep you on the chair and also attracting the chair down. So the gravity held you on the chair. Do you remember the magnetism? Yes, the magnetism also, it's invisible force that we cannot see it. Okay, the force of magnet, it can be attraction or repulsion. With the force of magnet attraction, the magnet cannot attract anything. The magnet can attract only some metals, not all the metals. The magnet can attract some metals like iron, nickel, cobalt, iron, nickel, cobalt. Okay, we know the iron, like the iron nails. The magnet can attract iron nails or paper clips because it's made of iron. What is the nickel? The nickel, it's a metal which the knife is made of. The knife is made of nickel. Okay, what about the cobalt? The cobalt is a yellow metal, and we can see it on the Egyptian pounds. It's called cobalt, and if you try to take your Egyptian pound and attract it to the magnet, it will be attracted because it has cobalt. So again, the magnetism, it's a force of attraction or repulsion, and it can attract metal objects which made of iron, nickel, or cobalt. Iron, nickel, or cobalt. Okay, now let's talk about the friction force. If you remember the friction force, when you are running or when you are moving with bicycle or when you are moving with car, what is the force that stop you or slow you down all the time? It is the friction force, and the friction force all the time generated between two touching objects. When you are running, there is a friction force between your shoes and the ground. This friction force is pulling you back or pushing you back. So what will happen to you? You will slow down until you stop. So this force, it's also affecting on the cars, affecting on the bicycles, and affecting anything moving. So there is all the time a force called friction force, and the friction force all the time affecting the moving object, and it's slowing down the movement of objects. When you are running to the right side, you can feel that there is something on the ground pushing you back to the left side. This is the friction force that happened between your shoes and between the ground. And also when you are riding a bicycle and you are using the brakes of the brake of the bicycle, it's using the friction force, and it is make the friction force with the ground, make the tires make a friction force with the ground. That's why the tires of the bicycle, it's slowing down until it stop. So the bicycle brakes use the friction force to slow down or to stop the bicycle. So the friction force, it's the force that slow down the movement of objects, and it's happened between two touched objects. That means that the friction force is a contact force. And we have another friction force happen to us when we are running. When you are running, you can feel that the air is pushing you back. When you are running, you can feel the air is pushing you back and also pushing your hair. When you are running to the right side, you feel that the air is moving to the left side. When you are moving on the left side, you feel that the air is pushing you to the right side. And it's also in the opposite direction of your movement. This is called the air resistance. The air resistance, it's a type of friction force because it's touching your body and try to push you back and slow you down. So the air resistance, again, it's a type of friction force, and it is a force that opposes the movement, that it means that it's opposite to the direction of your movement. If you are moving right, it will move left. If you are falling down, it's pushing you up. If you are moving up, it will push you down. So all the time, the air resistance, it is opposite to the movement, or it's opposite sometimes to the gravity. If there is something falling down, all the time the gravity is pulling this object down, and the air resistance is pushing this object up. So it's slowing down the objects. So the air resistance, it's a force that slow down objects moving through the air. It's a force that slow down the objects moving through the air. Okay, so that means that the air also can stop us or can slow us down. Okay, why the skydivers using a parachute to slow his drop? When the skydivers jumping from high place, they are using parachutes. Why they are using parachutes? When you are falling down from the air, the air resistance, it's trying to push you, but it's not enough. So you will fall down to the gravity very, very, very fast, because the gravity will be stronger than air resistance. But if you are wearing a parachute, so you will become bigger and the air resistance will increase. So when the air resistance increase, what will happen? It will push you up and will push also the parachute up. So now there is a big resistance force that will slow the skydiver down until it's drop on the earth's surface. So again, who will has more air resistance? A person falling only, or a person wearing a parachute? Of course, the person wearing a parachute, because when there is a person alone, what will happen? The air resistance is pushing the person only. But if there is a parachute, so that means that the air is pushing the person and also the parachute, and the shape of the parachute help also the air resistance to be increased. So give reason why the skydivers using parachute when they are landing: to increase the air resistance and slow his drop, to increase the air resistance and slow his drop. And this is the air resistance. Now let's talk about the law of motion. What is the law of motion? The law of motion says that the force of gravity is constant and acts on all objects on the same way. What's the meaning of that? That means that the gravity, it doesn't change. The gravity affecting all objects on the same way. It's constant. Constants mean fixed, or it doesn't change. So that means that if there is something heavy, if there is something light, any object on the earth, it's affected with the gravity by the same force. The gravity force, it doesn't change. It's only one gravity, and it's constant and doesn't change. So the law of motion says that the force of gravity is constant and act on all objects in the same way. Okay, how can we prove that? Now, if there is two objects falling, like a hammer and a paper, which one will fall faster? Of course, the hammer, because it has more mass. Okay, what is slowing down the paper? The paper slow down because the air resistance. It has a low mass, and when the mass decrease, the air resistance will increase, and also the shape of the paper help it to increase the air resistance. So it's slowing the paper down, and the hammer will fall faster because it has a small air resistance. So that means that the air resistance force, it's the force that slow down some object and decrease slowing down another objects. And that means if there is no resistance force, all objects will not slow down, and the mass will doesn't affect the gravity, and all objects will fall down with the same speed and will reach the ground at the same time. So, according to the law of motion, if we drop a hammer and paper at the same time, if there is no air resistance, if there is no air resistance, they will reach the floor at the same time because there is no air resistance, and if there is no air resistance, the shape and mass doesn't affect the gravity, so they will fall down with the same speed from the same height at the same time. This is the law of motion. Now let's start lesson number 6. Before year 1543, in this year, or before this year, the scientists say that the sun is revolving around the earth. But on year number 1543, there is a scientist called Nicholas Copernicus. It's called what? Nicholas Copernicus. Nicholas Copernicus stated that, or said that, the earth is revolving around the sun, and the sun it's not revolving around the earth, because the sun is the center of the solar system and all the planets revolving around it, because the sun has the biggest mass and the biggest gravity on the solar system. So again, Nicholas Copernicus said that the earth is revolving around the sun, and in the solar system each planet revolving around the sun in a path or in a way called orbit. Each planet has its own orbit, and the orbit has which shape? As we can see in this picture, the orbit has the oval shape. It's not circle, it's oval shaped. And this oval shape has another word which is ellipse. Ellipse. Ellipse means oval. Ellipse means oval. So again, the orbit of the planet has which shape? Ellipse or oval shape. Ellipse or oval shape. And they say the speed of the earth when it's revolving around the sun is nearly equal 107,000 kilometer per hour. So that means that it's more than 100,000 kilometer per hour. This is the 8 planets that revolve around the sun in fixed orbit, which has ellipse shaped or oval shaped. And as we said, the gravity is invisible force or attraction force that hold all the planets on their places, and the big gravitational force of the sun keep all the planets revolving around it in a fixed orbit, and if there is no gravity, all the planets will fly into the space. The last give reason say that the sun is the only center of motion on the solar system. Why the sun is the only center of motion in the solar system? Because the sun it has more mass and it's much bigger, so it has more gravity and attracting all the planets toward it. With you was Ms. Noura Abdurrahman, and thank you for listening.